A 4channer recently made a thread on X, the paranormal board on 4chan. He claimed to be a well-established music producer who had spent the winter messing around with Mixcraft 7, creating some simple chiptune stuff. But he quickly grew bored with this. This is what he said. "That's when I had the idea to see what it sounded like to stack notes at a frequency whose hertz value was a prime number. It took me 3 hours, and the more tracks I added, the more and more uncomfortable I got hearing it play back. At that point, I had about 170 tracks running at once. 8 hours later, I had made it to a bit past 4,000 hertz. It made my room spin. I was dizzy and angry and weirdly nostalgic. It felt like my mind was on fire and running circles, and I started seeing really terrible images in my mind. As much as I hated the sound, over the next couple of days I found myself continuously listening to it. For the first 50 times or so I hated it, but I felt like I needed to keep playing it. Around maybe the 100th play, I started liking the sound. A lot." The next natural step was to see how his creation affected others. "I played it while I was driving my little brother to school, and he began to shake, and his face began to twitch. He yelled for me to turn it off, but I didn't want to. He punched my car stereo and it stopped." His brother had to be picked up soon after being dropped off at school, claiming to be suffering from a bad headache. Then he showed it to his mom. The result was similar. He goes on, "There was a neighbor where I used to live who would swear at my family over the fence and would shoot fireworks at our house. I drove to his house with a decent-sized Bluetooth speaker and set it up outside a window to play into the house. I waited a bit until they were both in the room. With the speaker pointed in, I played the sound. Right away I heard a shattering of glass inside, and they began to raise their voices at each other. I kept playing the sound. About 10 minutes later, an ambulance showed up at the house, and that's when I dipped out." Needless to say, everyone began demanding the music file. He was hesitant at first, then relented, but said that he was going to only present an incomplete version, with 1/3 of the channels muted completely. Personally, I think this is just some kid having some fun at X's expense. But some people did claim to get a bizarre feeling from the file. Then, the Anon changed his mind again and sent a link to the original version. What follows is that very file.